That's Ward Thomas on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. It's Lorna Bailey with you through until midday today. And we really want to hear from you this morning because we're going to spend the next bit of time really on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire speaking about Triumph for a very good reason. I'm delighted to welcome to the studios of BBC Coventry and Warwickshire Nick Price, who's made the journey in. He's handed me a lovely book. Nick, a very good morning to you. Thank you for coming into the studios of BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.
Good morning, pleasure to be here.
Tell us first of all, because you've set up, you're trying to trace former employees of Triumph. In a nutshell, really want to explore a little bit more about that and find out a little bit why it is you want to trace them. So tell us, what's your connection with Triumph first of all?
I own a 1960 Triumph Herald convertible, bright red, and every time I bring it around Coventry, so many people stop and say, I used to work at the factory, I used to work at the Standard, I used to work at the Triumph, I put that together. And you do get a little bit blasé about it, in that there's so many people that say that to you, no matter where you are in Coventry or Rugby or Nuneaton. And I thought, actually, we should start recording this, because I have information sent through on Triumph Herald, have done for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of it isn't necessarily Herald related, but it's Triumph related, and I've kind of put it to one side. And there's great photographs of all the people that made the Triumph cars. And you look at them and they're young apprentices who were 14 then, up to people that looked kind of 60. In those days, people tended to look older than they actually were. But you knew that they probably served in the both wars. It turns out that through a bit of history, there were 5 Victoria Cross winners in the Coventry area.
Really?
And 2 of them worked at the Standard.
And this site, now Coventry, it looks so different. It's a massive supermarket and it's Malfunction Junction. It's all that bit of Coventry. Times have changed. But what was it like in that bit of? So many people listening will know. But for those that don't appreciate how industrious and how vibrant that bit of the city was at that time, what was it like?
It was, everyone has said it's a bit of a family atmosphere, in that the workers worked there, both male and female as well.
Yeah.
But the children were always looked after at Christmas time, where Standard and Triumph gave presents for the children. There were social clubs, there were outings, there were exchange visits to London, because there was a London branch and the London guys would come up to Coventry and some of the Coventry ones would go down to London. There was just so much. It helped as well that there was social events. It helped that there was a fortnight shutdown in August where everyone would go on holiday at the same time. And I've even had stories where they would go and meet at Blackpool or Weston-super-Mare, and you'd see all the people that you were working with, because it was the Coventry fortnight.
And it was the Coventry fortnight, and that would have been true. I, as a child, my dad worked at GEC, so not in the motor industry, but actually that kind of Christmas thing as a kid was something you really looked forward to. It was the GEC Christmas party was definitely something that was one of those things you really got excited about, seeing Father Christmas, and that would have been the way the city was and the way it embraced communities within the factories, whichever they were. So the Triumph stories that you've managed to collect so far, how long have you been? I've had a look that you've set up a website. You've not been up and running that long, but you've got hundreds already.
It's been going for 2 weeks. It went in the paper on Sunday, the Coventry Telegraph, and my email on the Sunday night and up to today has been mad. It's been absolutely brilliant, the response from people that work there, the families of the people that work there, because it did go back to 1903. And the response has just been amazing. It's very much as if I'm taking my car out and about. People really look back with great fondness of their time there. And I've worked in big companies before, and I remember the people very fondly who I worked with more than the company in a sense.
So that kind of, is it a way of trying to connect people, or is it purely nostalgia? What do you hope to achieve with it?
It's a bit of both, in that if someone mentions a name, it kind of snowballs and someone might remember that name and then remember someone else.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's a resource that is trying to bring back a lot of information that has been forgotten.
So just in terms, I mean, the history of the fact that it was there, the history of the split from motorcycles and cars and the standard Triumph, that's there. But this sounds as though it's more a kind of social history as well that you're trying to capture.
In a sense, a lot of people, I don't think I've had a negative comment from any worker or family member of a worker yet, even when it came to the strikes and literally the hard times, where one person said he started on the Monday and was on strike on the Tuesday. Now, it's not necessarily negative of what was going on. He's still looking back quite fondly of his time at Standard and Standard Triumph.
0345 900 5200 is the number here at BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. If it's something that you remember, if you worked there, then I know Nick would really love to hear from you now or later, but we'd love to hear from you now. If you worked at Triumph, then please be in touch this morning. 0345 900 5200 is the phone number. You can text us as well. It's 81333. Start your message with CW, and we'll continue to talk to Nick here on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire after Dr. Hook. On BBC Coventry and Warwickshire, and when you're in love with a beautiful woman, that's how appropriate for Valentine's Day. It's Lorna Bailey with you here through until midday today, and we are in conversation with Nick from Rugby, Nick Price, who's owned Triumph motor vehicle. It got a lot of attention when he was driving around, and it's prompted him to do something really rather special, which means he's here today looking to speak to you if you worked at Triumph. Nick, you've got several hundred names on your list already, and one of the names that you've got on there is that of John Davey, who was an early historian. Actually, my mum worked for him, small world, in a different capacity, but my mum did work for John Davey. He's a historian for the early standard cars. He set up the Standard Register. Now, I think there was one for Triumph as well, I think. But this was a register of vehicles, and it's kind of what you're doing is a register of people.
Initially I've set up the register for Triumph Heralds, and there's 6,000 cars on it, and it's the people that interest me in the photographs of those heralds that I thought, actually no one knows about these people, and I just thought it's about time that we found out about them. One guy I managed to get hold of was I have a booklet that was issued by the Triumph company for heralds.
Yeah.
And this it shows a man by some slides who's teaching the Triumph trainees how to put the cars together. And they're interesting photographs. And this guy, I'll hold it up to you, but he's
in a white lab coat. He's got a pointy stick. It's very traditional,
it's
isn't it?
It's a very traditional
photograph.
Yes.
He looks like he's got a tie on, he's got his white lab, what looks like a lab coat, and he is giving what looks to be, from still images, black and white images, a very formal demonstration of how to piece together a car.
Correct, yes.
Okay, excellent.
And it's a fantastic book saying, in Blue Peter style, here's how to do it, and invariably it's a bit harder to do than the illustrations are showing.
Yes.
So it shows this guy, and I thought, I wonder who he is or was. And thankfully, Triumph actually printed their own newspaper each month, which is a fantastic resource. They're quite rare, and I'd love to hear from anyone that has any, because the initial 300 names came from the two newspapers that I had.
Oh, really?
And I've got one dated August 1961, and lo and behold, the guy in the picture is in this newspaper.
Oh, really?
So he was almost the inspiration for doing the resource, because when you read about him, it becomes even more fascinating. And the reason he was in 1961, he was in the Queen's Honours. He won the British Empire Medal. But it turns out he was in the Territorial Army. His name's Alf Welsh. He was in the Territorial Army. He went to France with the British Expeditionary Force in 1939, was evacuated from the beaches at Dunkirk,
Gosh.
served throughout the entire war, went back on D-Day, and served throughout, went back to Standard Triumph, and knows how to put a windscreen in a Triumph Herald.
Good grief. 0345 900 5200 is the phone number. Nick Price looking to collate Information lists, stories, the stories behind the people that worked in the factories there in Coventry for Triumph. If it's you, we'd love to hear from you this morning. 0345 900 5200 is the phone number. Let's speak to Jean. Hello, Jean. Morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Go on then. You tell me. You worked there?
It was at Standard when I was there. I can't just remember whether it changed to Standard Triumph before I left, but I was certainly Standard. But I knew quite a lot about Standard Triumph. I think it had changed before I left. You forget as time goes on, but I was there. Sir John Black, of course, was managing director. Mr. Dick was under him. There was Harry Webster, that was one of the chief designers. I think he had something to do with was it the Herald? It was round about that time.
Yes.
Mr. Weald was over the track. Mr. Rubley was, I think he was, what was his title? I can't think. I think he was just under Mr. Weald, that is on the same level sort of thing. There was Catlin in the purchase department. It was McGarry was one of the shop stewards.
Is that Eddie McGarry? Someone's come forward with him.
Yes,
Yes.
There's another. I can't think of the other blooming shop steward's name. There was the one in the tinsmith shop was a communist, a very nice man, a very genuine man, which I always got to always say, but he was very, very genuine. And I can't just think of his flipping name.
Oh, Jean, we were listening to Nick sort of describing earlier on about how much care was taken for families and the sense of community.
That was he set up the first pension scheme for the men in Standard, and as I said, my father didn't go to Standard until 1943, so he didn't have a very big pension, but nevertheless, when he came to die, because he was only 66 when he died, my mother still had half the pension until the day she died, which she was 93. And I think I'm right in saying my son has just lost his father-in-law, who's an apprentice at Standard, and he was 92, I think, when Harry died in November. And he had a pension, and I think he was still drawing it.
I mean, Nick, for you, that when you listen, you've got the hugest smile on your face listening to you. I have to tell you, Jean, honestly, you've put a big smile on a man's face on Valentine's Day, Jean. Well done.
Mr. Bennington was the welfare officer, and he was the officer that if there was anybody was not to do with the Coventry convalescent home at Dawlish, he would sort that out for them. That sort of thing, you know. And Standard was a closed shop for the unions. You couldn't go to Standard unless you were in the union, bar the telephone exchange, which I was in. And he would not allow the telephone exchange to go in the union. He said they work for both sides. And if you think about it, then we didn't have mobile phones or anything like that, and there wasn't many cars about, so getting messages, the telephone was the most important part for transmitting from union offices to. Do you see what I'm?
Yeah. Jean, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. I know you've honestly made Nick really happy. He's got a big smile. All these names that you've been reading off that he's recognised and things like this. So we need to find out a little bit about how people can get in touch with you and where they can go and actually have a look at some of the things that you've already collated and put online. So give us the information that we're going to need, Nick. So if people want to get in touch with you, first of all, and you want to hear from anybody that works there.
I'd like to hear from anyone that worked there or family of our friends of people that have worked there, essentially from 1903, when it was Standard, because it changed names so many times and also used lots of suppliers, so I'm also interested in the suppliers.
As well?
Yeah, because it was, a lot of the cars were put together in a kind of Meccano sense, so they were assembled as opposed to built to a certain extent, so it's a huge family of people in Coventry and Warwickshire that were involved in putting these cars together.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from everyone, whatever guys it was, whether it was Standard, whether it was Standard Triumph, whether it was Triumph, whether it was British Leyland, when it was the Unipark building, which was built in 61. But everything sort of had different guises, and when it changed, it seemed to diminish the little bit previous. So Sir John Black was, in most books these days, is written as quite austere and quite difficult to work with. And yet that's not what I hear from the people that worked with him. So Jean Just sounded very positive about him, and all the people that have certainly written to me have said brilliant things about him. In fact, I've got one from Mark Scorer, who's saying about his dad Jack, saying that Sir John Black said he knew the first name of every man on the shop floor. And he was the chairman of the company. He rescued the company from obscurity, helped build Mosquito's wooden planes during the Second World War, and really took Triumph from a very small company to an international company.
I think it's fascinating, the stories that you're going to uncover from all of the people that worked within it. Actually, if you're broadening it out as well to go to the supply chain as well, with all of the other bits that are coming in, you're going to have some incredible stories. So how do people get in touch with you?
First of all, the website, have a look please, is called triumphworks.co.uk, all one word. triumphworks.co.uk. And there, if you have a name, you can submit it straight on the site. It does help if you put the surname first.
Yeah.
But they are moderated, so if you don't do it that way, or there's something wrong, it will be moderated and put right.
Okay.
And on there you can put as much or as little as possible. If it's a name, fantastic. If it's a story, fantastic as well.
Which story stands out the most for you at the moment of the ones that you've collated?
I think someone once said the next one. I was driving here thinking which ones to pull out, and I was putting some together on Saturday, thinking some good ones. I knew I was coming in. But the Sunday ones surpass all of those, and I haven't read today's emails yet. So the new ones that are coming in are just brilliant. In fact, 2 came in yesterday that I did have to admit I didn't know a thing about. There were 2, I need to say it properly, comptometer operators.
I don't know whether you've said it right or not, Nick.
No.
I don't worry too much.
No. And within 2 minutes, 2 different people, and one was with a photograph. And I did have I did have to Google them, but apparently they are electronic calculators, or the precursor of the calculator, that were used, mechanical devices invented early 1900s, but used up to the 1980s when they were when computers were coming in, but electric typewriters then superseded them. I'd never heard of them. And yet within 2 minutes, 2 separate people, one from the 40s, one from the 60s, contacted me to say that's what I was doing.
You're going to collate an enormous piece of a body of work and project with regard to, it sounds as though you start off looking for a list of names and a list of people and their stories, but you're also going to be pulling together social history and the engineering history of the city as well. It's going to be an incredible project to follow. triumphworks.co.uk is where to find it. Nick, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about it on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. Pleasure.
Thank you.
She's